Annenberg Media.
What would happen if all the plants disappeared in the world?
What's all the gooey stuff in the pond? Why does there have to be so many insects in the world?
Welcome to Shedding Light on Science. I'm Christine Jones, an astrophysicist at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics.
And I'm Anita Greenwood, a science educator at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Our planet Earth is an ecosystem, a balanced living system where many organisms interact with one another and with their environment. Natural ecosystems have an upper green belt that absorbs light energy. They also have a lower brown belt in which material decomposes. Today we'll look at how light, as a result of photosynthesis, provides the primary energy needed for this green belt to maintain ecosystems.
An ecosystem can be as small as a puddle or a rock pool, or as large as a tropical rainforest or the ocean, or even the whole Earth. But whatever its size, most ecosystems contain organisms that absorb light energy during photosynthesis. On land, green plants photosynthesize. In the ocean, near the surface where light can penetrate, microscopic organisms called phytoplankton, as well as seaweed, carry out photosynthesis.
Whether on land or in the ocean, organisms that photosynthesize use chlorophyll to absorb the energy of light. This absorbed energy is used to join carbon dioxide and hydrogen from water to make sugar. As a result of photosynthesis, light energy is transformed into chemical energy in sugar. And as well as making sugar, green plants, phytoplankton, and seaweed make oxygen as a byproduct.
Energy undergoes transformations, as we've seen in photosynthesis, where light energy can be changed into chemical energy. Energy is not created or destroyed. It is transferred and transformed. We see these transformations occurring in many everyday situations.
When we drive a car, the chemical energy in the gas is changed to mechanical energy, and also energy is radiated. We know this because we can feel the heat coming from the engine.
When you turn on a light, electrical energy flows in a circuit, and from the light bulb, we get visible light energy and infrared photons, another form of light that we feel as heat. When we wind up a child's toy, chemical energy is transformed by muscles to mechanical energy. The mechanical energy is transformed to stored energy, potential energy, in the spring of the toy, and then back to mechanical energy as the toy moves. During the transformation of chemical energy in muscles, some energy is radiated as heat. We notice this more when we've been running. In these examples, one form of energy is not entirely converted to just one other form of energy. Instead, some of the energy is radiated as heat. Energy is not destroyed, but the radiated energy cannot be recaptured by the system. Knowing that energy is transferred and transformed and not destroyed is crucial to understanding the interaction of organisms in ecosystems.
Here at the shore, there are many ecosystems. The ocean itself is an ecosystem. But even within the ocean, there are smaller ecosystems. And the shore has a variety of ecosystems. The rocky areas, the marshes, the sand dunes, all are ecosystems. Natural ecosystems do not have distinct boundaries, and this means that they can influence each other.
As we look at ecosystems today, we'll think about how organisms interact within an ecosystem, how light energy is transformed and transferred throughout ecosystems, and how matter is recycled in ecosystems.
The study of ecosystems is common in elementary school. You may have worked with your students to explore some of the ecosystems in the world around them. In the elementary grades, we often start by finding out what students already know about where organisms live. We visited Pilar Fabre's combined first and second grade classroom in Lowell, Massachusetts, where the children are drawing pictures of ecosystems. Listen for the organisms they include in their ecosystem drawings.
Yes, I would think so. You can include a turtle in your forest and in a pond too. Yes. So you know a lot about ponds then. What kinds of things would you find there?
A turtle, a sunfish, an alligator.
Very good. Can you think of other animals that live in the forest?
I hope it's not dinosaurs.
Could dinosaurs live in the forest nowadays? Why not?
Because they're all extinct.
They're all extinct, exactly. What else can you add to your picture? What else would you find in a forest?
You know, when you see a bird laying on a nest, it's gonna fly and get worms and then put it on the baby birds.
Yes.
And then they will eat it.
Exactly, yes. I have to agree with you. The birds will get worms and they're going to bring them to the baby birds. Very good, very good. Can you show us some worms in your picture?
Okay.
Sure, good.
I'm gonna do something.
We talked about dolphins earlier. What do they eat?
Fish.
Mm-hmm.
A frog that eats flies. And an alligator that eats some fish. And a catfish that eats fish. And a starfish that eats little bugs. Fish, an alligator, eating a fish, seaweed.
Do you have in mind which one are you going to choose? A jungle. Beautiful. Try to cover as much of the paper as you can.
Young children recognize that a whole variety of organisms live in ecosystems. You may have noticed that they are more likely to talk about the animals in their ecosystems than the plants. And often the animals are the larger types, the vertebrates, rather than the millions of smaller animals, the invertebrates, which are present in every ecosystem. To get a better picture of the variety of organisms that can be found in one ecosystem, we followed a group of pre-service teachers as they explored a local pond. Ooh, lovely beetles, lots of beetles in here. When I emptied the water out to get it back into the pond, I emptied it on the mud, and that brought up a lot of species as well. We'll count that as one sample as well. You can also take account of the plants as well as the animals. Group 1 is starting here, and group 2 is going to start on the meadow.
He's got Should we put him in a Petri? Yeah, so we can get a closer look. There he is. Back swimmer. And they're both the same, right? Yeah. Let's see if they are. Here it is. Nope. I think that one.
Guy's a swimmer.
Yep, he's not on his back.
We got back swimmers And water boatmen.
Water boatman? Think it could be a boatman?
Yeah.
No, that's probably what it is, because they look both the same, but one's upside down. They should have 6 legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got 2 pinching mouth parts, like 2 pinchers, very predominant.
Let's go back to the moth thing again.
Try and catch a frog.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
There's a couple.
Watch out, Michelle. Okay, so what do you think?
Okay.
I wonder if they're scavengers since they're hiding at the bottom in the mud.
Yeah, because it's not the predaceous diving beetles, because those stay at the surface of the water, this says. Yeah, so it's probably a scavenger beetle.
Oh, here's the king
This
crab.
sample is absolutely teeming with stuff. Oh, this is incredible.
What's on?
You know what we need to do? We should take this back to the lab and put it under the binocular microscope because I can't see enough of the detail to just using a hand lens.
There's a fly.
Ooh, look at that.
Wow. That's a ladybug nymph. That turns into a ladybug. It makes a cocoon just like a butterfly.
That is so cool.
Isn't that cool?
As we see from the pond sampling, there is an abundance of living things in an ecosystem. If we examine the organisms carefully, we can group them according to their feeding habits. Let's look closely at what the pre-service teachers found. The pond has an abundance of green plants and algae growing in, on, and around it. Green plants and algae are producers. They make their own food. Producers are the organisms on which all other organisms depend. It is their ability to absorb light energy that provides the entire food supply for the whole Earth. Producers are generally the most numerous organisms in any ecosystem. Next numerous are the animals which eat plants. We call these primary consumers, or we also refer to them as herbivores. All eat plants. Microscopic animals in water and the larvae of some flies are herbivores found in ponds. Next come the secondary consumers, or carnivores. They eat herbivores. Around the pond, ladybugs and insect-eating birds are carnivores. Next are the tertiary consumers, or carnivores that eat carnivores. When you examine many ecosystems, there are generally more producers than anything else present. The next numerous organisms are the primary consumers. Next come the secondary and then tertiary consumers. Ecologists refer to graphic representations of the numbers of each type of feeding group in an ecosystem as a pyramid of numbers.
In any ecosystem like this shore, for example, the animals and plants are linked by their feeding relationships. These relationships can form a food chain. The first and second graders in Lowell, Massachusetts have some interesting ideas about food chains. Listen, especially for their ideas of the sun's importance to life on Earth.
Living things do need the sun. What would happen if living things did not have the sun?
They could die.
Mason?
And if they had it from the very, very beginning, they probably would have adapted to it by now. But if they might have adapted to it by now if it turned a long, long time ago, but it all of a sudden it just happened, they'll die.
What would happen if we didn't have the sun? Rachel.
If we didn't have no sun, we'll be freezing.
We talked about food chains earlier. What is a food chain? What is a food chain? Delaney?
They connect, they like feed from each other. Like sharks eat fish and fish eat something. And
What do fish eat?
And fish eat water weeds and it goes on.
Okay, exactly. So animals and plants are interconnected because they feed from one another.
And little fish eat seaweed water things. What does the seaweed water things eat?
What a good question. What a good question. Maybe they drink water. Well, let me ask you something, Aminata. What do plants eat in general? Do we feed plants like we feed pets?
No.
Then
Yes.
what do plants eat?
Drink water and
Plants drink water, definitely, but water is not food. Well, there's one thing that makes plants very different from animals, and that is they produce their own food.
And they could grow by themselves with water.
Yes, certainly. Then let me ask the next question. Are we part of a food chain?
Yes.
What makes us part of a food chain? Mason?
I think in the food chain we're somewhere near the end.
Why are we near the
Because
end?
no one really eats us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're part of the food chain because we eat animals.
We eat
Fish.
animal, we eat fish, we eat meat, all of that. What about what Rachel said earlier? Plants. Do we eat plants?
Yes. Yes.
Do we eat lettuce?
Yes.
Do we eat carrots?
Yes.
Do we eat broccoli?
Yes. Yes.
I remember your comment, Rachel. You said we don't need the sun to grow. But if we eat plants, do we need the sun?
Yes.
Why? Aminata?
Because the sun helps plants grow.
Exactly. If the sun helps the plants grow and we eat plants, then we definitely need the sun in our lives.
Even at this young age, children recognize the importance of the sun's energy, but quite naturally, they tend to connect this to temperature rather than to photosynthesis. Now let's think about food chains in more detail. Create a food chain for an ecosystem. What is the largest number of links you can think of in your food chain? Compare your food chain with those of your colleagues. What might limit the number of links in a food chain? Food chains show animals eating only one type of food. But is that really what happens in ecosystems? A whole series of interconnected food chains is formed within an ecosystem, producing a food web. We visited a third-grade classroom at the Merkland School in Lowell, Massachusetts, where Susan Wallace is using an activity to introduce her students to food webs.
Now
Now, boys and girls, before we begin to make our web, I would like you to look at all of those and raise your hand if you could give me a food chain using 3 cards.
Small bird eat grasshopper, grasshopper eat grass. That coyote eat that deer.
The coyote eats the...
Deer.
Where is the deer? Oh, I see it.
That
Right.
deer eat grass.
What would happen if the grass was all gone?
The deer die.
The deer would die. And then would anything else happen?
And the coyote die.
Why would the coyote die? He doesn't eat grass. There were no deer left. Can you think of anything else up here that a coyote might also eat?
Small bird.
Coyote might eat a small bird. So if the deer disappeared, would he still have something to eat? Yes, he would. What I want to do today is I want to try to show you how all of these things can be connected. Where do we say the plants were on the food chain? They're always at the bottom of the food chain. The plant won't be eating anything, but if I hand the end of a string to a plant, the animals need to look to see if that's something that you eat. I'm going to start with the seed. I'm going to give you one end. Who might like to eat seeds?
Small bird.
And what do you eat?
Seed.
Yeah. You want to come up, get the end of your string. Just tuck one end underneath the tape. Does anyone else eat seeds? Who are you?
Squirrel.
And what do you eat?
Seeds.
We have to give the seed another string. We have to connect it to the squirrel.
I am a coyote. I eat deer.
Oh, deer is going to be eaten.
I am a grasshopper and I eat leaves.
Where's our leaves?
I am a woodpecker. I eat grasshopper.
I am a fox. I eat chipmunks. I am a bird and deer eat me. I am small bird. I eat fruit.
Fruit. So if this was a food web, which it is, look at all our crisscross lines, no more food chains, we have everything all mixed up. Do you think the small bird will die if there's no more seeds?
No.
Why not?
He still got more food to eat.
He has fruit to eat.
Coyote eat squirrel. Coyote eat deer. Fox eat deer.
And fox eat squirrel. The grasshopper eat grass.
What might eat a grasshopper?
Small bird.
Can you make a connection?
Yep.
Through the food web activity, the children are able to show the interconnectedness of organisms living in an ecosystem. The more types of organisms found in an ecosystem, the more complex the food web becomes. Tropical rainforests are the most complex ecosystems on Earth. Because food webs are so complex, let's think about just one food chain. Food chains generally contain a producer and only about 4 or 5 links. So why are there so few links in most food chains? We can begin to answer this question by thinking about the energy transfers and transformations that are occurring. Food chains and webs describe feeding relationships between producers and consumers. But we can also look at them in terms of the energy that is being transferred from the sun in photosynthesizing organisms, and from these to animals, and then from animal to animal. Green plants, phytoplankton, and seaweed, all producers, capture light energy during photosynthesis and make sugar. When an animal eats a producer, chemical energy in the sugar is transferred to the animal. But not all the chemical energy contained in the producer is transferred to the animal that eats it. Let's explore the reasons for this. As we saw earlier with the light bulb, when we use one form of energy to produce another form of energy, the process is not 100% efficient. By this we mean that during the transformation of energy, some energy is generally radiated as heat. This inefficiency in the transfer of energy from one organism to another is one reason why the number of links in a food chain is limited. We'll return to this idea later, but first, let's visit the ocean.
We joined Dale Sullivan Taylor, a naturalist for the New England Aquarium, on a whale watch off the coast of New England. Dale describes the interconnectedness of life in an ocean ecosystem, where the links may not all be so obvious.
Well, today we came out to Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary. Basically what a bank is, it's almost like an underwater mountain with the top cut off. The reason why the whales come here is because of that bank. What happens is deep, cold ocean currents will crash up on the side of the bank, creating upwelling. It brings cold, nutrient-rich waters up to the surface. It forces it up to the surface where normally it won't go to the surface because of the warm waters. And because of these nutrients, it feeds the plant plankton. And because there's so much plant plankton, there's going to be the animal plankton around it because there's plenty of food. Now, what plankton is, it's a plant or animal that lives on or near the surface of the water. Plant plankton is very, very tiny, so we don't collect too much plant plankton, even in that plankton toe. We get more of the larger plankton, such as the copepods, which is a type of plankton that lives its entire life as plankton. And then we have a different type of plankton, which actually only has part of its life as plankton, such as crab, lobster, sea stars, sea urchins. When they come out of their eggs, they are considered plankton because they're up near the surface. You come up here and most people are thinking that these waters are really, really polluted, and that's why it's so murky, and you go down the Caribbean and it's nice and crystal clear. There's so much plant plankton, that's the reason why the waters are so green. These waters are just teeming with life. Plankton is actually on the bottom of the food chain. The lower you feed on the food chain, the more energy you're getting out of the animal. By eating higher up in the food chain, you actually end up having to eat more. And that is one of the reasons why that plankton is such a sought-after animal for many different types of animals to feed upon. Plants don't eat like we eat. They actually can make their own food, and that's the reason why they're green. They have something called chlorophyll, which is green. And by using the chlorophyll and by using the sun's energy in a process called photosynthesis, they make their own food. So they are pretty much self-sufficient. Today we had 3 different species. We had the humpback whale, the finback whale, and the minke whale, all of which are baleen whales. They have no teeth. So these guys are the big guys with the baleen. One type of whale that feeds on plankton is that of the northern Atlantic right whale. And they feed on copepods, which again is about 1/4 of an inch thick. And it takes 200,000 copepods to fill a coffee mug. And these animals will feed tons of this type of food per day. So it's a lot. It's a lot of coffee mugs. Now the animal plankton will feed on either other animal plankton or that plant plankton. And then you have all different types of animals that will feed on the plant plankton, and then animals that feed on the animals that feed on the plant plankton. So it's a whole cycle of life.
Dale gave us some idea of the amount of plankton a whale needs to eat in order to get enough energy. It is the availability of energy that is one of the limiting factors in a food chain. Let's illustrate this. Of all the sunlight reaching a green plant, only about 1% of it is actually transformed into chemical energy in sugar. In this demonstration, let's imagine that these 1,000 blocks represent the light energy falling on a plant. Through photosynthesis, the green plant transforms about 1% of the light energy to chemical energy stored in sugar. So out of the 1,000 blocks, we have only 10 blocks representing the energy now stored in the plant. Now we can imagine the plant being eaten by a herbivore, such as a rabbit. The rabbit does not eat the whole plant. Even if it did, the plant has already used up some of the energy in sugar for its own purposes. And some of the energy released from the sugar has been radiated to the air as heat. As a rule of thumb, only about 10% of the plant's energy is available to the rabbit. So the rabbit receives 1/10 of the plant's energy, or in our demonstration, 1 block. Now the rabbit is eaten by an owl. Again, the 10% rule comes into play. The owl can only get about 1/10 of the rabbit's energy, or in our demonstration, 1/10 of 1 block. You might be able to see now one reason why food chains are short. At each link in the chain, not all the energy is transferred. In order for the owl to get enough energy for its needs, there must be several rabbits or other small animals for it to feed on. And for the rabbits to get enough energy, there must be a plentiful supply of plants.
The energy available at each level of a food chain is represented as a pyramid of energy. A pyramid of energy is similar to a pyramid of numbers. The producers contain far more energy than the consumers. Ecosystems must be constantly supplied with energy, and the primary source of energy is light from the sun. Now that we've explored the importance of energy flow in ecosystems, let's begin to think about how ecosystems maintain a balance between producers and consumers. Create a food web and discuss what would happen if one of the organisms in your food web disappeared. The ecosystems we visited, the pond and the ocean, show us how the lives of organisms are intertwined, but the organisms are also in balance. If one type of organism in an ecosystem flourishes, this will affect the numbers of all other organisms. In a pond ecosystem, if the number of herons increases, they will deplete the number of fish in the pond. With fewer fish, the insects they feed on will flourish. At the same time, the heron population will start to decrease. Since herons eat fish, the fish population will now increase. In this way, a balance is maintained among the numbers of organisms in an ecosystem to ensure that enough energy is available to flow from organism to organism. However, humans can disturb the delicate balance of nature. Rachel Carson called attention to the influence that humans have on our environment.
Rachel Carson, writer, marine biologist, and naturalist, believed that human beings are as much a part of nature as all other living things, but that humans are distinguished by their power to alter nature, in some cases, irreversibly. It was Carson who alerted people to the potential dangers of the indiscriminate spraying of insecticides. In her book, Silent Spring, Carson explains that DDT sprayed on crops is ingested by birds, bees, fish, sheep, and eventually human beings because of their interrelated food chains. Testifying before Congress in 1963, Carson called for new policies to protect human health and the environment. It was Rachel Carson's work that helped to launch the environmental movement.
We've seen so far that ecosystems contain photosynthesizing organisms, producers, and organisms which must eat food, consumers. There's a very important group of consumers that we mentioned earlier, but we have not yet discussed, and these are the decomposers. Decomposers are generally microscopic and include fungi and bacteria that get their food from excretions and from the bodies of dead organisms. It is the decomposers that return nutrients to the soil and are responsible for recycling matter in ecosystems. This compost heap has a lot of decomposition happening. Children are often unaware that organisms are involved in decomposition, rotting. They also tend to see rotting as an unwanted occurrence. After all, who wants to eat rotting fruit? As a beginning to the study of decomposition, Therese Waldock in Amherst, Massachusetts, conducted a guided discovery unit with her 4th grade students, in which they investigate what makes things rot. Listen for their discussion for the cause of decomposition.
We want to know. How long will it take a worm to get real sugar to get it? What is the difference between an apple staying in a container and an apple staying outside? Like what will happen? Why does it not rot inside a container?
Number 4, does it matter when it has water on it? Any kind of fruit or anything? 5, how do things grow on other things?
How does oxygen rot apples?
How does
Oxygen
or air
rot apples.
How does air rot apples?
How long does it take after things die to decompose? Yeah. Okay. How long does it take after things die to decompose? Will an artificial cherry biodegrade? Like the what's it called? Maraschino cherries. Yeah, biodegrade. We're going to take 2 cups and put vinegar in one and water in the other, and then put a tomato in each of them. And we're going to see which one works faster.
You can take it down with you and then bring back the extras.
Sugar. We can get through outside.
Is there one person from each table?
Only one person from each table? Yeah, they're real cherries. I checked the ingredients on both of them. That one's totally sugar and this one's not. Let Dan put one in. I didn't put any in. I didn't put any in. Neither has Tatiana. I'm going to have it. You did the dirt, didn't you?
No, Tatiana did.
Can I have a real Tatiana? No. But we don't have veggie oil. Yes, we do. This is veggie oil. Pure vegetable oil. Oh. Vaseline. Got the vinegar. Can I do the Vaseline? I'll cover the whole thing in Vaseline. No.
Okay.
Okay.
How about over here?
Okay.
Okay, put the bread down.
There's that carrot here. Yeah. And here. This one goes like that. Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna have to put it
over.
Here. Like maybe I should move this up.
Yeah.
Worm.
A worm. Oh! A worm! I think there's one in there. I think there's one in that block that you
Amber, I
just
can't see.
Duh! There's no carrot in there.
Yes, there is. One carrot.
Not in the block there. It might be.
No, there's
There's only one carrot. Do you want a worm? There's carrot. Two, I think.
Well, there's one. Nothing really
There's
happened.
one over here too. Separated. Let me show you what we found out. It's cheese. What were we trying to find out? Were we trying to find out what nature would do to it? Because if you leave something on the ground, it rots, and nature does that. But if you say you leave something damp and you put it in a dark place and it gets mildew on it, that's not outside in nature. That's maybe in your closet. Your shoes are getting mildew. It depends what you're trying to learn. Nature can have a way of doing it, and you can have a way of doing it too. But you have to know what you want to learn first.
Does air rot apples, or does dirt rot apples? So we're trying to find out what that means and trying to learn that process, not the nature process of just leaving it on the ground and seeing if it rots.
What else did we learn? The only comments I want from people now are some statements about we learned.
Apples can rot in almost anything.
Okay. Meaning? What do you mean by anything?
Meaning that it can rot in air, it can rot on the ground, it can rot in water with Vaseline on it.
In other words, it's just plain gonna rot?
It's just plain gonna rot.
The children in Therese's class discovered various environmental conditions that were necessary for the decomposition of plant matter, rotting, to occur. But the children had questions about what was causing the decomposition. Some children thought that the environmental conditions themselves were responsible, while Tatiana expressed the idea that nature causes things to rot. Nature certainly is responsible for the process of rotting. The decay of dead animal and plant matter is caused by decomposers. Decomposers themselves are living things and need suitable environmental conditions in which to thrive, as the children discovered. Let's explore what happens during decomposition a little further. Many decomposers are microbes and are too small to actually eat the dead matter of organisms. Instead, they release chemicals onto the dead matter. This forms a liquid soup of nutrients that the microscopic decomposers can absorb as their food source. But the decomposers don't absorb all the liquid nutrients that they make, and some nutrients seep back into the soil and are available for plants to use. In this way, the matter of the ecosystem is recycled. Today we've seen that producers, green plants, phytoplankton, seaweed, and some bacteria, make food in the form of sugar. All other organisms are consumers, including the decomposers, and they must eat food. But what do organisms do with the food that they have either made or have eaten? Some food is needed to build body structures, but mostly the food is needed for its energy content. Energy keeps our body functioning. For instance, Without energy, our muscles could not contract. And the food that much of our energy comes from is sugar. How then is energy released from food? Most organisms release the energy from food in the process called aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, which occurs inside of cells of living things, sugar is combined with oxygen that has come from the air. And after a series of reactions inside the cells, carbon dioxide, water, and energy are released from the sugar. The carbon dioxide and water, in the form of vapor, pass back out of the cells and eventually into the air. Some of the energy is kept by the organism and used for its own purposes, and some is radiated as heat. As we saw in the process of photosynthesis, producers need carbon dioxide in order to make sugar, and they also release oxygen, which, as we have just seen, is needed for aerobic respiration. Photosynthesis and aerobic respiration work together. Photosynthesis makes the food that all organisms need and releases oxygen to the atmosphere. Aerobic respiration uses this oxygen to release energy from the food, and in the process makes carbon dioxide needed for photosynthesis. We've now come full circle. The sun provides energy for photosynthesis, which is transformed into chemical energy in sugar, the food for all living things. Aerobic respiration releases this chemical energy for the organism's use, but transforms some to infrared photons, radiated as heat.
Our explorations of ecosystems today show that while the matter of organisms' bodies can be recycled in the process of decomposition, the energy needed by the ecosystem has to be constantly supplied. And the primary source of energy for ecosystems is light energy from the sun.
In the next workshop, we'll explore the role of sunlight in the Earth's seasonal and climatic changes. Thank you for joining us today. Remember to check out our website for additional information, activities, and discussions with your colleagues. The address is www.learner.org/channel/workshops/shedding-light. And if you don't have access to the web, you can share your thoughts with us by email, fax, or mail. Our email address is channel@learner.org. Our fax is 617-496-7670.
Annenberg Media. For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.